Thank you, Dean Rosin, and thank you, Dr. Farkas, Professor Farkas, for this wonderful introduction. And sometimes I just want to say, just keep talking, keep talking. Thank you. So addiction is a false instinct. What I will be talking today about, first of all, I would say what survival instincts are. Some people call them drives. I talk for the few words about present understanding of neuroscience of addiction. I just make the point that survival suggests trauma, right? We don't survive something fun, we survive something traumatic. I mentioned something where science meets popular belief. This will be about injury of the brain, and new direction of neurobiology of addiction, neuroimmunology. So we're stepping a completely different direction. So a few words about natural rewards. Selected drives is about food, water, safety, and please look at the circle, because in the circle, you see all neuroscience is in the circle. You have stimulus or stimuli, you have drive as the effect of stimuli, and you have action as the effect of drive. And that will be all about that. So when we talk about survival instinct, and when we talk about natural rewards, I usually ask students, how do you know you are hungry? How do you know you are thirsty? Do you have to go to school to learn about that? And everybody knows, no, we all know very well where we are hungry, thirsty, or in danger. And I said, so how do you know that? And this is the fun moment. You say, my body tells me. Later on, I just joke, it's like in English, Polish, what word, what language? And then I ask, so what would happen if you don't listen to your body? They will say, I'll die. The truth is that they are right. But how do you know that? So the signal, the stimuli from the body are so strong, and you always had them, you believe it's true. You don't question that. This is what instinct is. So let's talk more about one example. Hunger. Hunger is distress. So we used to think about neurobiology of addiction that is about reward center, pleasure center. Sounds like fun, sounds like one big party, right? No, at the beginning is distress. Think about it. How you feel when you are hungry, how you feel when you are thirsty, how you feel when you are afraid of your life. No fun, right? But eating is pleasurable until you are full. When you are full, you're done. You don't want to eat anymore. So this is about a reward pathway. So all this information from the body, whatever language our body talks to us, comes to middle of the brain, where is the limbic system. The limbic system regulates behaviors that are essential for survival. And how it regulates? It tells you, if you do what I need, if you do what I want, you feel pleasure. So it rewards you. But also has connection to prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain which is controller, critical, kind of parental figure in our brain, and tells you what you can do, what you shouldn't do. And I want you to know that sometimes when this middle part of the brain wants too much, it doesn't listen to the cortex. We'll die if we listen to the cortex. When we need to eat, we'll eat. So what happens when we drink alcohol? Depending on the frequency and amount of alcohol, we start changing. The whole body, our brain is changing, and we need more for the same effect, and we experience craving. When we are hungry, we crave food. When we are thirsty, we crave water. When alcoholic, the person addicted to alcohol, wants alcohol, they crave alcohol the same way. So don't believe in this wonderful theory that drugs is a pleasure. Addiction is awful, terrible. It's one of the worst distressful feelings you may have. And this is why the person addicted to alcohol drugs needs the drug to relieve from the state and also have a pleasure. And this is the way when this false instinct is installed. Why is false? Because you've been not born that way. You work hard to get it, and you are never full. More you drink, more you get the drug, more you want it. So it's really a very false instinct. So what happened, the same picture as I showed you before, but here this connection to the cortex doesn't work. Now imagine the person addicted to alcohol who never experienced, who never listened to this lecture, and has a craving for alcohol. And he knows that if he will not drink, he will die, because this he knows from being hungry, thirsty, or in danger. This is the same feeling, awful, terrible. And you talk him using CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. You know, you shouldn't drink because you know consequences and all that stuff. And all they hear alcohol, and all they think, when I can drink.
To understand the complexities of addiction and its neurobiology, it's important to understand the brain's reward pathway. Information travels through the VTA area to the nucleus accumbens to the prefrontal cortex. These reward pathways make us feel pleasure and are activated by stimuli such as food, water, or sex. These same areas are also involved in addiction. Alcohol and drug use changes the way the brain works. You can see a normal functioning brain on the left and the abnormal functioning addicted brain on the right. Prolonged use of alcohol and drugs also changes the structure of the brain. You can see the normal healthy brain structure on the left and the abnormal addicted brain structure on the right, which could be long-lasting.
You've seen the brain changed, right? So this is the main word from today's presentation, is change. And next slide is a very famous slide from the paper of Volkov and from NIDA. So on the left side, you see the brain, kind of symbolic, the brain of the person who is not addicted. You see they coming for the party, they see wine, or say, okay, I like the wine, I'll drink. And there's control, big blue, you say, okay, but only one glass, because otherwise you make fool of yourself and all that stuff. Okay, memory is whatever, indifferent, because there was never too much talking about wine or alcohol. However, if you are a person who is nervous because of your accent, because of whatever, you learn that if you drink, everything is wonderful. So you drink more and more. And eventually, when you see wine or think about wine, this thinking about pleasure coming from wine is overwhelming. So there's this drive for alcohol. Look what happened with the control. Very, very weak. What about memory? Oh, they will tell you all the good things about memory. You drink, your English will be perfect. But what happened? So why can't addict just quit? Because addiction changes the brain circuit. And we know that. If you are my student, this is what we talk. But so far, we didn't talk, how does change happen? What kind of change? What guides this change? Change, the word by itself doesn't explain much. You have to ask this question. So let's start with about vulnerability to addiction. So it depends on genetic factors, epigenetic factors. You all know that is parental fault. Environmental factors like stress and trauma, exposure to drugs, gateway drugs like nicotine, maybe marijuana, biological, personal characteristics like temperament, and beliefs. Yeah, I'll feel much better if I drink. And depends on specific drug of abuse. Cocaine will work differently than heroin. Frequency of amount and route of administration. These are all vulnerability, different vulnerability. I mentioned stress and trauma, and since we're talking about survival instinct, let's talk more about that. So chronic stress and long-lasting effects of trauma injure brain. I'll just tell you that, and please believe me, It's fact. It's just regular injury of the brain. Here is a lot of links. After you listen to this presentation, you get this PowerPoint in your mailbox. Please click all the links. You'll see a lot of wonderful material. So any injury to the brain evokes immune response. Long-lasting drug abuse induces immune response as well. So what's happening? The immune response is defense reaction, right? So it's still talking about survival. It's defense reaction. Prolonged inflammation, because immune response creates inflammation. This is as defense reaction. Changes the brain and makes it more vulnerable to insult. So you have, for the first time, next to each other, inflammation and change. So inflammation contributes to brain plasticity. So now we're slowly coming to the point when I'm telling you the biggest truth, that without inflammation, you will not have plasticity. So what's going on, right? Oh, what's going on? Good question. Okay, it is not pretty, it is not magic about alcoholism. So a long time ago when I was teaching about the alcoholism, I was showing the movie with Father Martin. He is very good because he uses common sense and humor, and I love it. And one time he said, listen, and he talks to the people addicted to alcohol, and he said, alcohol is the best surface cleaner. It cleans fat, and your brain is mostly made from fat, so it cleans you up completely. So it's not pretty, it's not magic. So after drinking, you feel mild dehydration, disrupted sleep, mini withdrawal. You can get gastrointestinal irritation and what? Inflammation. Here is about brain imaging. In the middle, you have normal brain. To the left, you have after alcohol. This is what Father Martin said. You wipe out your brain. So got it, inflammation. So you already knew that this is where I'm going. It's inflammation will be the main thing. We say that 90% of brain cells are glial cells. Some people, they have to question. They say, hey, maybe not 90%, maybe less. Glia, there are astrocytes, oligodendrocytes, and microglia. They are different cells which help neurons to function. And one protein in astrocytes, released, secreted by astrocyte, thrombospondin, that's one protein stimulates new synapses, new synapse creation. It's coming from glial cells, it's coming from immune system. If you're one of these therapists, you're saying that I do holistic therapy. At the beginning, when I heard this holistic, like, what are you talking about? And now I'm talking about. There is a relation between brain and guts. Our microbiota, microbiome. Brain controls microbiota, guts, and guts control our brain back. All this control happens through the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve, the name comes from wonder, because he is the wonder, it's everywhere. So when we talk that my body talks to me, really vagus nerve is talking to you. This is the most important slide. You see this slide, this is what it's about. You see in the center substance abuse disorders. You see to the left neurotransmitters, the famous dopamine, and if you're talking about neuroscience of addiction, this is about dopamine, reward, pleasure, and that's all what it is. Where it is? One of many. You have microbes, you have metabolites, a lot of these chemicals which swimming in your veins and affect the way you think. You have immune system, you have obviously trauma response, a stress response, and you have my wonderful vagus nerve. Vagus nerve, which tells you everything about your body. What's interesting, It not all comes and works together. They have different time scale when they work. This is time course of body response to trauma. But, as we already said, drugs is also trauma. Drugs kills your brain, injures your brain, creates immune response. So the first response is sympathetic nervous system in seconds and minutes. Hormonal response, HPA axis, in traumatic event, hours. Immune system in days. And behavior, as we all know, takes us weeks to react. This is how it looks like. So when we talk about brain, we don't talk about neurons only. These are the yellow one. We have to talk about glial cells, which is much more, and these are the cells which feed the neurons. Without the cells, neuron doesn't work. And here's a beautiful slide, which I love this artist. The kind of bluish green is neuron, and all yellow guys are glial cells. They're doing everything. They're talking to neuron, they're cleaning neuron, they feed the neuron, they treat the neuron. They do everything. This is neuroplasticity in action. So a few more things about inflammation. As I said, inflammation is defense mechanism. So you see the green light. If I have a wound, you have this resolution phase. Immune system comes to my wound and heals it. And when it's finished, it's done, it's over. However, if I keep taking drugs day by day, month by month, year by year, look the red, this is what happens. It's chronic inflammation and nothing good about that. Here is what happened during chronic inflammation. This astrocyte, microglia, they cut the axons, they get rid of synapses, or they create the new one. These are this, you see this yellow guys? These are these guys who create neuroplasticity. Not neurons. Eventually, through their work on neurons, they create neuroplasticity. One of the first slides I'll show you today, this brain with this reward center and cortex. Once my student said, I've seen this picture 30, 20 years ago. Why you keep showing me? I said, because it's simple. Now I'll show you this picture. This is not about brain. This is only about one synapse. Look what's happening. Microglia and astrocyte get information from everywhere, including vagus nerve, all the information, and translate to the language the neurons understand. And they say, okay, be more active, be less active. Just, I'll destroy you, or I'll have to create more like you. So this is when all neuroplasticity happens. So if this is all about inflammation, how we should treat addiction? Maybe to give something anti-inflammatory. And guess what? Ketamine, which by the way is drug by itself, lowers inflammation, lowers depression, and lowers cocaine use disorder. And you know the last one, there's link. This is from Yesterday Daily. Yes, we are there. And psychedelic, one of my students, she told me she will be listening. She likes psychedelics. And you know, she might be right. It lowers inflammation, it lowers depression, and lowers alcohol use disorder too. It's working. I personally, I'm not thrilled because it looks like I would treat drug addiction with another drug. It's like, But I like a vagus nerve, and I like this listening to the body. I like this poor guy in the therapist's office who listened to this, what he should do with alcohol, when his body is telling him clearly what he needs to do with the alcohol. And, and I think that all people who teach you how to listen to your body, how to be holistic, they're up to something. And you see the circle again, stimulus, drive, action. You can rewire your brain. with learning how to listen and stimulate your body, counteract your addiction, you can rewire your brain. And there are many therapy models. I will mention only Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory. I know the people here are working on this. And Peter Levin's somatic experiencing. I'll tell you why. I showed the picture from Picasso, who showed the absinthe drinker who is doing this. And I thought it's about craving. But when I listened to Peter Levin lecture, he said, when you have anxiety or depression, hold yourself. Treat your body as a container of your emotions and hold it. And I was so impressed that I completely changed how I see this picture, completely. And with this, thank you very much.